I'm so glad you're with us here on the Clark Howard Show. You know, our mission is to serve you with advice and information that empowers you so you make better financial decisions in your life. And in today's episode, I'm going to talk about something we received so many calls about in our Team Clark Consumer Action Center. Timeshares. Also, teaching your kids about money is tough. I want to tell you the role that allowance plays in teaching the finiteness of money to your kid. So, timeshares stink. And I've said this for 40 years in broadcast and now here on podcast and our YouTube show. Timeshares are something that are defective by their very design. Because no matter how much you love your timeshare, when you buy it or for years to come, when you don't want it anymore, it sticks to you like glue. And no matter what you paid for it, it has basically no market value. And that's why to exit a timeshare, you have to pay somebody to take it over almost always. And it's almost impossible, even in the most perfect situation, to not lose tons of money when you sell a timeshare. So enough people have heard that the word timeshare has become a damaged word, a damaged term. And so the industry wants to come up with new ways, and they'll use different terms like interval ownership or whatever. But the latest is the opposite of improvement. The latest is actually, believe it or not, worse than timeshares. Yep, the industry managed to come up with a way to make it worse. What do they call the new stuff? And actually, it's not new because I'll tell you a story in a second. But they're calling them vacation clubs. And so the idea of a vacation club is you don't own anything. You're just paying for the right to be able to take vacations whenever you wish, so many days a year for free, or the rest of the year at greatly reduced prices. And I remember I was new as a TV reporter in the early 90s. And there were all these people getting ripped off by a very early attempt at this whole vacation club thing. And people were paying $20,000 approximately to buy the right to have these free vacations. And then they were never available. You could never take one. And so I go there and I do one of those typical TV confrontation things. I show up with my photographer and my microphone and the lights blazing at the sales center for this. And it was really funny because the waiting room was full of people that were buying this. And seeing me there generated a lot of buzz in the waiting room. And I asked to speak to, I knew who the principal was from not online research then. Forgot how we did it, the library or whatever. We found principal, I asked for the person. And I'm waiting. And so I start interviewing people in the lobby. And next thing I know, there's 2 police officers there to arrest me for trespassing. And ultimately ended up not being arrested. And that company ended up vanishing in the night. And one of the principals did spend some time in jail. But that was early. Now you got big players doing these vacation clubs. And the New York Times recently did a story about person after person who had bought Vacation Club by Hyatt and spent $50,000, inflation, right? Because in the 90s it was 20, now with that organization, 50,000. And person after person ended up in 40-year contracts, 40-year contracts, and were unable, allegedly, to be able to use any of the benefits. Because remember, at least with the timeshare, you have your designated week, and you can use your week year after year. It may not be a good deal, but you have your week. With these vacation clubs, it's just an empty promise that you'll be able to take a vacation that, as people allege with the Hyatt one, you can't ever do. So know that this is something that sounds exciting, especially in winter when is peak selling season for these things. Don't fall for it. Timeshare by any other name is still a rotten, terrible deal. What should you do? Find the best deal on a vacation when you want to take one. And by the way, we are going to have a lot of great deals. And I need to do a segment sometime in the next couple of weeks, if I could, with your permission.
You don't need my permission.
Well, you're the boss.
No, you're the boss.
You're COO of the company.
You could squash me like a bug.
Right. Anyway, so I want to do something soon about why we're going to have so many deals this year and what are the deals you should be looking for in 25. And January is one of the very best months to buy deals. And so we'll talk about that later.
Love that. Okay, this came in from David in Nevada. In your article on Amazon scams, it is suggested to change your password frequently, your Amazon password. If I have a 12-character randomly generated password from my password manager and the site has not been hacked so that my password has been accessed, why would I want to change my password? I see this advice periodically. I have 512 passwords and only change them when there has been a known breach or for some reason they're not working.
512. How about that?
Yeah.
How many sign-ins do you think you have?
I have no idea. I was just thinking about that.
I've never thought about how many of these usernames and passwords I have. So 12 character, randomly generated. The longer a phrase is, the better it is you hear from security personnel. But I would say, even though it's a great idea if you, with Amazon being such a place that's it's like keys to the kingdom for a crook, if you have your password manager, you got your 12 random characters, I'm okay with you keeping it like it is.
Janie in West Virginia says, my husband and I are taking responsibility for our investments. We have met with a fiduciary fee-only financial advisor and will be opening an account with Schwab and moving our investments from a local insurance company with assets under management fee-based plan. Now I've heard, or to a fee-based plan, I believe.
From a fee base.
Yeah.
So they were with another
insurance
one of these
company.
dreaded insurance companies.
I've heard so many horror stories about scammers and fraudsters stealing money from investors and want to know what I can do to protect our money. I use a Chrome laptop for banking purposes only. Should I use the same laptop for the purpose of managing my investments? Should I get an additional laptop just for my investments? Do you have any other advice before we get started?
So I think using the Chromebook, you're fine. The protections in a Chromebook, because Chromebooks are resistant to viruses as a general rule, I think you're okay. Plus, Schwab has one of the clearest policies on stating that your account is protected by them. Now, on the other hand, the problem not so much today is somebody cracking in to your account through hacking in and that kind of thing through your computer. Today, the way it's done most often is pretexting, with somebody pretending to be from Schwab or pretending to be from your financial planner's office. So that's the thing you need to be very, very cautious of. Somebody representing themselves as being what they're not.
Mary in North Carolina says, if you want to save money getting work done on your personal car, is it a good idea to use automotive schools? They get practice and you save money. How would you find such a school that will help you?
So this is something that I used to recommend, but Christa, you found in more recent research that because of the dreaded liability word, that this is much less frequently available.
Yes, I actually called a few automotive schools, and they all said they used to do it, but they no longer do it. One school was sued. They never had the students do really complex stuff on the people's cars that came from the outside, but they all said they do, just FYI, this doesn't help Mary out, but if they have like a beautician school, like a hair cutting school, or like there are other services that you can actually get, you can be a student and save money on. So.
And we've had several people talk about if they live near a veterinary medicine school and they can't afford the veterinary care that their pet needs, that there may be a veterinary medicine school that they can get much cheaper services than they would get otherwise. But yeah, I mean, for years, going back, I think it was even in my first book, more than 30 years ago, about having automotive repairs you couldn't afford done in an automotive school.
But I mean, it's worth a shot. Call a technical college in your area and see if they still do it. It's possible. But that's what I would do. I would look up automotive schools in your area, Mary, and give them a call. Everybody was very friendly that I spoke with.
Well, isn't that nice?
Yes.
When do you start your classes?
I mean, it's amazing. I was actually on the websites of some of these schools, and I was like, wow, this is so cool, the stuff you can learn, and for free a lot of times, like if they're, just local community colleges and stuff. It's pretty awesome.
So I don't know if you know this about me, Christa.
What? After this many years? Are you going to throw something new at me?
I don't know. You'll tell me if
I do
you
call
knew
you
this
the human
already.
onion because you have so many layers.
So after I finished graduate school, and I was working, postgraduate job, I was really like, I don't know anything about cars. And I don't know if I were to take my car in, if I'd have any idea if they were ripping me off or whatever. And I went to auto mechanic school.
I did know that one.
Oh, so you did know that.
You probably told me that 20 years ago.
So I went to auto mechanic school, and I took a 9-month course. And what I discovered after 9 months is I have no mechanical aptitude whatsoever. I failed the final exam. Where you're actually they give you a vehicle and you have to diagnose it and you have to fix the things that you've diagnosed and all that. And oh man.
Wow.
9 months I discovered. I mean, a woman could have had a baby in that period of time. And I had trouble getting past just doing oil and filter changes on a car. So that would not have been my first best destiny, to have done my own repairs. So now I guess I'm doing what is my first best destiny.
There you go.
All right, so coming ahead, I want to talk allowances. It's so confusing today about the role of allowances in teaching the value of money to your kids, and I want to discuss that with you. Allowances used to be so prominent as a way to give young children all the way through into high school spending money so that they're not always coming to you and asking for this, that, or the other. And for reasons I can't quite figure out, allowances are not as common as they used to be. And depending on a family culture and parental philosophies, there are people who still do allowances may require chores to earn those allowances, or just by breathing and being a year older, you get an allowance that may step up each year. I'm of the school that it's really great to have kids have responsibilities, chores, or whatever you want to call them, in order to receive an allowance, that it creates this sense that that money was in some way earned, if you will. But the reason I like allowances is that it creates a sense of finiteness. But in order to make an allowance effective, you as a parent have to, when the kid says, oh, Mom, Dad, can I have money for this, that, or the other? It's hard, but if you're really going to teach the value of money, you have to say, no, you have to use your allowance. And you use allowance to its best extent if you do use it as a way of a kid having to learn, like an adult does, that they have to set priorities. If I really want to have fill in the blank, can I afford to buy this other item, or does it put me further back? Let's say a kid loves playing video games, and there's a video game they just really want to have. But then there's other things they might, go with their friend shopping or whatever, or they may go to a restaurant and they buy a meal when they're out with friends. If it doesn't take away from the pile of money to get to that game, again, there's no teaching of deferred gratification. Deferred gratification is one of the most important things to be successful with managing money over an entire lifetime. So if there's no enforced shortages, then there's no learning to set priorities and to make temporary sacrifices for the longer term goal that in a kid's mind, a longer term goal is next week, right? But if you don't do this, then your kid does not learn to set priorities and learn to say, you know what, I really would like to have this, that, or the other, but I can't have it right now because what I really want is that game or whatever it is. And it's also become harder for a big reason with money, because money is not cash to kids. Money is tapping with a phone or using some kind of card. And it's really much more difficult as a parent to teach good values with money when it is tap to pay or watch tap to pay. Those are really, really rough to teach the finiteness of money. So if a kid has the ability, and that's how they use money, it needs to be from a savings account that has that finite sum of money. And then they go tap to pay, and it's declined when they've blown through the money. That's the only way, is if you segregate out how a kid accesses money. If it's not actual paper money and coins, if it's not that, then it's got to be a separate account that there's a logical consequence that there's no money there anymore if they've been spending too much. Well, what's too much? When they've blown through the money they had from allowance. Okay, I got a crazy thing about money.
What?
So, I placed a bet with a friend over a football game.
How much?
Usual amount, 25
$1?
cents.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I'm not going to gamble $1.
You've bet me $1 before.
Well, because you're a big-time gambler. You even had me lose $20 for you when I was in Las Vegas once.
How many years ago was that?
I'm never going to get over that lost $20. Anyway, so I bet I won the bet. Finding a quarter is
so
like
hard.
impossible when people never use paper money and aren't getting change. He had to borrow the quarter from somebody else so Jay could pay off the 25-cent bet.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Yeah, you're going to have to go to $1.
Yeah, but then I still have to have the paper.
Yeah, I guess, because you don't use any of the apps. I would Venmo.
So you go to all these Tony places.
I
When
do.
when you go to
What are you
valet,
talking about?
you go to valet.
I rarely valet. I hate valeting.
Me too.
I hate it.
I wonder if they have converted routinely to taking like Cash App and Venmo.
Yes, I've definitely seen them because even if you walk by, you can see they put their QR codes up for sure. And like if you're at a cash bar, you'll see that too, like the QR codes. I think it's brilliant. That's what people should
What's
do.
a cash bar?
Like a bar at an event, like when you were recently inducted into a Press Club Hall of Fame, they had a little. That was you could buy a ticket to get a drink, but then you could tip the bartenders with their Venmo account.
How much was the water on the table at that? That was free. I have never bought a drink at one of these cash bars.
Really?
Yeah, I just drank the water on the table.
Let's go to questions.
Okay. Am I too thrifty?
I don't know. Of course not. This is why you have the show, and this is why I am working for you. Teresa in Ohio says, I am looking for a credit card that will pay cash back. This credit card will only be used to pay my propane bill. What credit card will offer me the best percentage rate?
So this has gotten to be so much easier, it blows my mind. I remember when we first talked about a 2% cashback card, and I think there was only one in the marketplace, or two. There were two at the time. Now, I think there's like a dozen of them that are available in the marketplace. We got a list of them at Clark.com, and 2% seems to be the sweet spot in the market. There are a couple of cards now that will pay you 2.5% or 3%, but you have to jump through a lot of hoops using one of those that pay 2.5% or 3%. The beauty of the 2% cards is none of them have an annual fee. And Christa wants to make sure you know we have a credit card.
It's not just a credit card. We have a cashback credit card calculator tool on Clark.com. I think this is the coolest thing. You input how much money you spend a month at different restaurants, drugstores, gas, grocery, wholesale clubs, or other, and then it will show you which 2% cashback card or other cards will be the best cashback for you. Nobody's got something like that.
So let me tell you what we've been doing. We're able to use, would I call this a use of AI?
Mm-hmm. Somewhat.
We're able to use some of the functionality that people talk AI. And we're able to say, wouldn't it be great if people had a way to really know the best deal on this, that, or the other? And then we're able, in a fraction of the time it used to take, to create a tool that you're able to do simple inputs and you're able to see as close to a perfect answer as you can. And, we're busy in our lives and there's so much noise, and how do you know what really is the best deal or best choice? And so we're putting up more and more of these decision-making tools because the capability now exists for us when we have one of those brainstorms to be able to generate that as a smaller company instead of some big bureaucratic
And
monolith.
we use our data that our writers are always gathering on like when the card offers change and all that stuff. So that's the backbone, is the database from our staff. Joseph in Ohio says, Clark, I was recently listening to your advice on raising your home insurance deductible higher.
Oh boy, this is not going to be a good story, is it?
About 4 years ago, we followed your advice and raised our deductible to 3%. Wouldn't you know it that a year later we had to file a claim when our ceiling collapsed due to water damage from a frozen pipe? Whew. We needed to have water mitigation, then repairs to multiple rooms on the first floor of our house. That sounds like a total nightmare. With a high deductible, we had a difficult time getting all the services we needed. The water mitigation services fell below the deductible, so the insurance gave us a little advice on how to handle it, and the company doing the mitigation did not seem to understand how to handle a claim where we'd be paying the mitigation costs out of pocket. In addition, the insurance company took every opportunity to find reasons not to pay for repairs, making it a very long and miserable experience. You've talked about raising your deductible, but I've never heard you talk about how to handle the management of a claim when you're in this situation where you have to pay significant money or cover portions of the service or repair before the insurance company will start to cover repairs. How would you recommend managing a claim when you have to file a complex one?
This is a great question, regardless of deductible. This is a great question. When you have a complex claim, in most states, you want to hire an independent adjuster. That's what it's called in some states, and others it may be called a public adjuster. This is someone who is an expert, usually independent, could be working for the insurance company on one case, working for a consumer on the other, and they go through the policy contents, the contract you have with the insurer. They figure out what should be covered. You're your advocate with the insurance company on a complicated claim. And let me tell you, a claim like you had would have been complicated even if you had not raised your deductible. What the deductible did was make it more painful for your wallet to go through this. But the complexity is a problem, and insurers are not, the more complicated a claim gets, the more difficult they are to deal with. When you have a linear claim, just a really simple claim, which a lot of claims will be more straightforward, a lot of people say, gosh, the insurer was great. They said, yeah, here's your money, go take care of it and have a nice life. But with a home, a lot of claims will be more complicated, and that's why you need an expert from the industry who is your own representative. There are a small handful of states where the insurance industry has tried to get through the state legislature laws that would prohibit a consumer having representation dealing with an insurance company, but that is a very rare bird indeed, and I couldn't even tell you if any states actually made it through the legislative process of doing that.
And this is from Neal in Georgia. I recently closed a bank account, received the funds, and then noticed online that there was interest left over that I had to ask the bank to send to me. Previously, I've lost online access when closing accounts, so I wonder if there are interest balances out there that I don't know about. What's the best practice for closing an account to get all of the interest? Like close at the beginning of the month, or ask that the interest be credited and then close the account?
Okay, so this, Neal, is a new problem that has come up repeatedly in the last few years. So it used to be standard practice that interest was calculated daily and credited daily. Well, now a number of financial institutions, both banks and I don't know of any credit unions doing this, but banks and brokerages are now bookkeeping-wise calculating interest for you potentially every day, or even some now are only calculating interest monthly. And so they only credit it at a certain point. And it won't necessarily be the end of the month. It could be the 12th of the month or 15th or whatever oddball thing. And this is a double benefit to an institution if they calculate monthly instead of daily, because you compound less over time interest. So you're getting less interest than it actually looks like. The second thing with it is that people end up with stranded money behind, don't know about, and the bank has use of that money or brokerage for years till, this is again a state thing, when under that state's laws, you're from Georgia, when Georgia would require that money from abandoned accounts has to be turned over to the state. So then that financial institution you were with has use of that money potentially for years and years to come. So you have to know before you close an account now, it shouldn't be this complicated, but you have to know, is there any interest that has not yet been credited? What date of the month is interest credited? And you close your account on that day. And this happened to me recently with an account that I had at a brokerage where I had to make a transaction with money, and then the money for interest credited later, and it was a decent amount of interest. And then I had to go through the whole process of going back and getting that money. So I have experienced this myself, Neal. And part of the joys of unnecessary complexity in the banking and brokerage industry. So this is the end of this episode today and the beginning of the new Clark podcast. And I'm not going to say new and improved. It's improved for my life. I told you last year that I'm going to do 3 episodes a week in 25 instead of 5. And I decided a while back that I wanted more time in my life. And so I'm doing podcasts Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So every day of my life leads into another off day. Isn't that fun?
That is fun. And
for me,
I am doing I'm doing a weekly episode that will air on Tuesdays. We're calling Ask an Advisor. It's part of the Team Clark mission to help you in all areas of your life with all things money. And Wes and I are going to be, Wes has filled in for you a couple of times.
Wes Moss.
Wes Moss. We're going to be doing an episode where he's going to answer your more complex investing questions and go more in depth about the market and things like that they're going, because he's a fee-only fiduciary financial advisor, which is what we recommend.
And so when I talked about this a month ago, I was talking about how when I started in broadcasting in the 1980s, for a long, long time, no one ever asked me a single question related to investing going through the 90s. But as traditional pensions have gone away and people are responsible for their own savings and investment choices, and the products have become much more complicated, as we were just talking about, that even a simple savings account is more complicated than it used to be. These questions are getting more specific, more involved, and so having a fee-only fiduciary financial person answering those questions was something we've batted around for 2 years, and it tied in perfectly with me wanting to cut back my work schedule. So you'll have weekly, that is a targeted episode, and then we'll have our normal general advice kind of episodes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, all geared towards you learning ways to save more, spend less, and avoid getting ripped off. And so now I won't say, as I usually do, see you tomorrow. I will see you Wednesday.
But I'll see you tomorrow.
That's right.